Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Dustin Braun. I have a little tuning platform called Braun Performance, but I just wanted to make this video. It's the first time I'm trying it out, but basically I wanted to explain how to read your data logs, why your tuners might be asking you to log certain parameters. And I've got a few data logs here in front of me to show you. A couple of them are from my car, and then a couple of them are from customers' cars. But I think regardless, this is important information, and it might make more sense why your tuner is asking you to do certain things. Why you have all these parameters down here. And if you're, one of those people who you deeply care about your car and you want to make sure everything's running well, I'd like to give you kind of a baseline of what looks good, what's healthy, because I think there's a common misconception that any timing corrections automatically means there's a problem. That's not the case. And we'll talk about that. This is really like a free form kind of conversation I'm having with you guys. I don't have an agenda in front of me. I don't have notes. I'm really just talking just about whatever comes to mind. I don't plan on editing this video, so hopefully I can get it on the first take. So don't mind me if I make mistakes and backtrack or whatever. I'm just gonna be a human with you guys and kind of not create this perfectly edited video. So I've got, like I said, I've got several logs. Some of them are on 91 octane, some of them are on E30, and then I've got one on E50. I've got stock turbos, I've got a pure 850 in here. So yeah, let's get started. So I think that we should start with one fuel type, and then I can talk about that, and then we can move on to the other fuel type. Why do we use ethanol? Why is ethanol such? Why can we make so much more power out of ethanol? Basically, the knock resistance of ethanol is higher, which means you can compress it more without it detonating by itself. So if you increase the pressure in a chamber significantly, you're going to increase the heat in that chamber, and once that heat reaches a certain temperature, you can detonate whatever's in that chamber without even needing a spark, and that's what knock is. And so what timing corrections do is they don't mean anything bad has happened. Actually, the car creates timing corrections to prevent knock from ever happening. So having timing corrections indicates that, yeah, maybe you're going to have, like, you're getting close to having a knock event. But if you have timing corrections and you're not getting any knock, then that basically means the car is doing its job. So the reason we use timing corrections to determine how good a tune is running is because we want to see if the car is already compensating, if the car is already trying to pull back power, if the car is trying to prevent knock. Because if you have no timing corrections, that means the car says, yeah, we're not even close to having this pre-detonation. And if you have a lot of timing corrections, then it says, yeah, we're getting close to pre-detonation. And after a certain amount of corrections, then you might have a knock event. So we can talk about generally, I think at the end we'll talk about what does a not so good log look like, what does it mean to get timing corrections and knock, in the sense that, like, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. So let's just jump right into this one. So this is a this is the final revision for the 91 ACN portion of this flex fuel map. So I have a customer, it's an E30 map is the max, and it's going to flex between 91 and E30. So what does the ACN part of 91 mean? That means, I think, Arizona, Colorado, and Nevada, because they have the worst quality of fuel. The number 91 is its knock resistance. So the higher that number goes, the more timing you can throw at it, the more pressure you can throw at it before you start getting knock or timing correction indicators. Okay, so let's jump into what you guys probably actually are here for. Sorry that I rambled there in the beginning. What do I look at when I get a log back from a customer, or when I'm looking at your logs online if someone's asking for some guidance? What I'm looking at is, first, we can look at the timing corrections. I think everybody kind of knows that. This is a perfect log, and it's funny because you say, how is a perfect log? There's timing corrections. There's timing corrections on a single cylinder, and it tends to happen. When you start getting corrections across multiple cylinders at the same time, for instance, and those corrections, they don't start cleaning up as you go through that range, then that is when you kind of have a problem. So in this case, it's perfect. I would say that this is a perfect log. So first, we're in fourth gear. I think everybody should be taking their logs in fourth gear. That's the best gear to take logs in. Third gear is okay too, but fourth gear is the best log. The next thing I like to look at is high pressure fuel pump target and actual. So we can see here, and you'll either have it in megapascals, or you'll have it in the SI units. I don't even remember what those units are off the top of my head. But what you're really looking for here is you're looking for dips from the red line, or deviation from the red line. And in this case, we're on 91 octane. We're not pushing a lot of boost. We know we're not going to have problems, but we look at it, just in case. But yeah, this is perfect. This would be a high pressure fuel pump that is having absolutely zero issues keeping up. Another indicator is you look at this high pressure fuel pump. This tells you more, actually. It's the base angle and the final angle of the high pressure fuel pump. It rides on the cam, right? It rides on the exhaust cam, and it's a mechanical fuel pump. Every time the cam goes around, it essentially squeezes that high pressure fuel pump, and that's what pushes out the fuel. So what we're looking for is an angle, a final angle, not the base angle, the final angle, an angle that is less than 126. Ideally, it really depends. Like, do you want to squeeze as much power as possible out of the car? Then the tuner is going to approach that 126 degree angle, if not ride that angle. And you'll see those dips, and some dips in the high pressure fuel pump is okay. It's just you have to start being careful, because what'll happen is you tell somebody, okay, this is an E30 tune, right? And so you assume they're going to put E30 in the car, and you guys go back and for some reason you say, okay, I'm going to put E35 and I'm going to put E40 in. Well, the tuner tuned it for E30. If it's at E30 and it's already at that maximum capacity of the pump, you adding that extra 5 to 10% of ethanol content could actually cause your pump to crash. So that's something to be aware of. So if you're going to go out and experiment like that, that's okay. Just know how to look at the parameters and make sure that it's fine. So essentially, if this final angle rides 126 degrees, then it's at its limits. And actually, I have a log here where I did that, because we're trying to push the car, get the most power out of it. So this is E30, but as you can see, the customer put in E35. So that's why you know, the pump maybe is having some trouble here. You can see it dipped to 14 out of 19, and it recovers well, so it's not that much of a problem. This isn't even the final revision. I think I'm currently still addressing this, so you get to see me making the sausage. I'm trying to bring that 14 up, and that might be why maybe your tuner says we have to pull back power a little bit. Now, in this case, this is a stock turbo. This is on the TU pump, so we are, you know, we're just maxing it out. That's just the case of how that is. Everybody wants to squeeze as much power out of it as possible, and you're going to get those dips in the high pressure fuel pump. It is possible, obviously, to tune the car to make sure that you never get any dips, but then you know, maybe you're slightly slower than somebody running an off-the-shelf map or running one from a tuner who's really squeezing every last drop out of it. I think there's a lot of ways you can approach this. You can kind of determine, do you want to squeeze every last ounce of power out of your car, or do you want, you know, a car that you know isn't pushing any boundaries? It's not trying to maximize every single component that you have installed on the car. And if that's the case, maybe you won't be as fast as, you know, the guy running from a different tuner, but maybe your high pressure fuel pump doesn't fail, you know, down the line or something, right? So I think that's something that people should keep in mind, and just be open with your tuner about what your goals are. Do you want just something that's squeezing every last ounce out, or, you know, do you want something that's maybe just a tiny bit slower, but isn't necessarily straining the high pressure fuel pump? Or upgrade your parts, you know, or get a, you know, Dorch Stage 2.5 or whatever other high pressure fuel pump is out there. So anyways, this is an example of a high pressure fuel pump not following the red line exactly, but still not a problem here. It is getting close to being a problem, and so, like I said, it's something I'm trying to address. And then let's look at the angle here, and you can see, like I said, it's at 126 degrees there. It's just riding that 126 degrees, and that's where the dip is, if you pay attention, right? So 118, 119, and boom, we hit 126, and it starts dipping. And then it recovers, and the angle drops. And that's because this is all boost dependent. If you have more air going into the cylinder, you need more fuel, and if you need more fuel, you're asking your high pressure fuel pump to work harder. If you have ethanol that your high pressure fuel pump has to push, you need more ethanol to make the same amount of power. So that's kind of the issue there, and that's why that works that way. So going back to this tune, we can see this load target and load actual. If we look at boost deviation, here I have it in HPA. That's because when you're tuning the car, do your tuner a favor. HPA is what all of the stock units are in boot mod, and I don't think you can change it. At least I haven't found a way to change it. So every table in your tuner, like in the tuning platform, it's not in PSI. The thing is, everybody wants to say, oh, this is how much boost I'm running in PSI, and that's fine. Like, go out and do that when you're done with your tune. Switch everything back to PSI, go get your PSI logs, and, you know, show it off to the world, because people do care more about PSI. Nobody knows how to read HPA. But the problem is when you're tuning, everything's in HPA. So in this case, like 100 HPA is about like 1.5 PSI or something. So we're basically, this is essentially perfect. And you can see that the load actual and the load target, they're following each other very well. And that makes sense, because while you're within a load requested range of what the stock ECU is used to, it has no problem using its PID control to get the boost to what it needs to be at. And by that I mean it's your position, your integral, and your derivative controllers, and you can look up control theory, and it's basically how it knows whether it needs to add boost or subtract boost, or it controls the wastegate duty cycle of the turbo. Okay, I'm going a little slower than I want to go, so let me hit some key points. Let's look at fuel injection timing. So essentially what this tells you is if you're going to run out of injector. You have your start angle and your end angle. And I'm not going to talk about all of it because, you know, there's some secret sauce in here that you get to learn, but as a tuner, it's something that every tuner kind of, I guess there's a lot of little secrets because everybody's been working on this a long time. Nobody wants to just give out their recipes, but if you look at the start angle and the end angle, you can see this one's 129 degrees. And if your tuner knows what they're doing, then they can use that number to determine if you're running out of stock injector or not. And you can also adjust that kind of in some of the tuning tables as well to get a little bit more out of the stock injectors. Okay, so that is what we're looking at for injectors. So if we were looking at short-term fuel trim, this is something where we want it to be plus or minus 0.1, where 1 is perfect. So 1.1 and 0.9 in between that. So here you can see it goes down to 1.02, and here it's a little bit above, and that's usually normal because during spool up that just kind of happens. But there's definitely room for improvement here to bring that short-term fuel trim down a little bit. So that's definitely something that we look at. We want to make sure that the numbers aren't crazy. And if you're using DataZap or MHD, the numbers might not be in 1.0, they might be in like 10 or negative, so you would use 0 as perfect, 10 and negative 10 as your bounds. So there you go. So that's something we look at here. We'll look at your lambda actual, that's your air-fuel ratio. That is something where we just want to make sure that whoever's tuning your car is using safe fueling, because you can run a car at a perfect stoichiometric ratio. So you get the most power out of a car with a perfect 1-to-1 air-to-fuel ratio. The problem is your cylinders get really, really hot, and so we add extra fuel to cool those cylinders down. So we want to see how much fuel are we adding to cool these cylinders down. Throttle angle is something you can look at. Throttle dips, if it doesn't bother you, it's not a problem. So, and by that, what I mean is, if you're driving and you feel the car jerking, then that's a problem, and then I would look at your throttle angle and see if your throttle keeps opening and closing. The car does it automatically if you start over boosting a little bit, but if you don't feel it and you see in your log the throttle's opening, it doesn't matter. It's not an issue. I mean, the car is using that to control the boost as well, and it really comes down to ride quality. So yes, a perfect no throttle closure at all, having it at 99% or 100% constantly, yeah, that's perfect. But what I'm trying to say is having the throttle open it's not going to, or having the throttle close a little bit, it doesn't reduce your power unless you start feeling it. So that's something to keep in mind. Let's see, what else have we got here? There's a lot of other parameters in here. Something that's really important to understand. So many people compare their torque values on here, where it says your target and your actual. We as tuners, we can make that say almost anything in a sense, and by that I mean we have to scale. Once you go above 200 load, you have to scale up your tuning, your torque tables. When you scale those torque tables up, it's not really comparable anymore because one tuner scales it one way, the other tuner scales it the other way. So the values that come out here, they might be close to real world values, they might not. That's something I think that there's a huge misconception. Another thing is everybody wants to look at their boost. Look at your load. Look at your load actual and your load target. If the black line and the orange line are close together, you're going to have a smooth boost curve. So let's look at this boost curve. You see how it's not choppy at all. And I think I'm not going to call anyone out because, you know, it's just not the right thing to do. But there are definitely some tunes out there where this just chops up and down. And I can't imagine that it feels great for the person driving it. A smooth boost curve is exactly what you want from your tuner. That's what you want them to deliver. So if it's chopping up and down, I'm not really sure what's going on. And you know, there's a limit to everything, right? So like, let's look at this boost curve. You see there's some choppiness here. This is about 30 pounds of boost on a pure 850. But this isn't the kind of choppiness I mean. I'm talking more like if it's doing this, that indicates to me that there's a problem with the PID control. It's overshooting, it's undershooting over and over again. So that's something to keep an eye out for. If you are interested in getting somebody to tune your car, see if you can find somebody who's posted data logs from them, and then like look at these parameters I'm talking about. See how that guy or girl tunes that car, because you know, knowledge is everything. Like you can trust the name brand, obviously. If they have a big customer base and they're reputable, then yeah, they're probably doing something right. But if you have some of this knowledge, you can go in and you can look and see if they're producing quality tunes. So yeah, I think I'll stop there, or let me show you an example of a bad log. So here, actually, these timing corrections in the beginning, I mean, they're not great, but they're actually not terrible. That -6 that you have there on cylinder 2, even if you had zero, I would wager, even if you had 0 corrections on every other cylinder, you'd still get that -6. Our B58 engines, they're just, I don't know what it is. Is it the intake manifold or what? Is it having trouble unevenly distributing the fueling? I imagine that methanol injection at each cylinder, not at the charge pipe, but methanol injection at each cylinder would probably help having those individual timing corrections significantly. But as you can see, it starts cleaning up here, like as in it's reducing, and up until this point right here, this log is fine. I wouldn't really have any trouble with this log. It's right here that you have an issue, because it started cleaning up and then it corrected again, and that's where I'll bet if I click this, and I'm making it sound like I didn't look at this log already, there's a knock event right there. See, there's a lot of corrections here, but they're okay. It's when the corrections do not clean up and they happen again, that's when you'll get your knock event most of the time. So this has one knock. Does this mean that this car is doomed? No, and honestly, he could probably keep driving it like this, but it's not pretty. Get it? I would reduce the map that you're running, right? Just go to stage 2, don't go to stage 2 plus. And I can tell you right off the bat, this is a stock turbo, because I get a lot of people posting, oh, I have a big boost deviation here, right here. Yeah, the boost deviation is probably huge. So this is in PSIA. Look at that. You're at almost 4 pounds off of target. And that's because they don't ask, does he even have wastegate duty cycle on here? I'm trying to see if I can give you an example. So this is an OTS map, right? and it's 220 load, okay? And then here's an example of me recreating that map. And we can look at the boost deviation here. Let's look at load actual, load target. You can see that I'm off here by about 15. And here, load actual to load target. And here they are off by 23. So that's because, and I need to see if there's wastegate duty cycle on this. I did never even really check that. It doesn't look like it's in here, so that is unfortunate. I can't show you that. Oh no, it's right here. So you see it's 89, 87, 89, 90. That's the PID adding more. 91, 92, right? So he stops at 92. Here, it's a little more aggressive. That's in the tune telling it to add more wastegate duty cycle. So it hits 96 basically, which is asking a lot out of the turbo. So I think here either you want to increase the slope and make it slope down faster, but that's just what happens with a stock turbo. It runs out of steam. You can see how hard it's having to work to even try to meet that, and that's because they're smaller turbos. They have a lot of torque down low, but not up top. If we look at this is a pure 850. Look, it has no trouble. It has no trouble being holding that boost at 6,500 RPM. It's 4 off of the target. And that's the benefit of having a bigger turbo. You get that top end power, but it will spool a little slower. Another thing here is if you look at where this is spooling, this is about 3,100 RPM where it hits target, and here we've got it hitting target at about 2,800. So the difference there is they probably increased the D gain in the PID control to slow down the spool a little bit, because these are the same exact turbo here, or could also have to do with elevation, the density of the air. Okay, I think I've rambled enough. If this wasn't, if this was too like jumping around from topic to topic, I apologize. I thought I'd just give it a shot. I mean, I post a lot in replies to people's questions about their logs, and I thought, why not just put together a video and see if it helps anyone. And even if I just help a few people, I'm happy that I was able to help. If you have any questions at any time, feel free to reach out. I'm not that swamped. If I become swamped, then maybe I'll stop offering free advice all the time, but I've got a full-time job, I'm married, and then I do this on the side as a hobby. So yeah, anyways, I'll see you guys online, and yeah, good luck everyone. Hope this was helpful.